Okay, I think I have it now. Okay, so yes, can you hear me? So
loud and clear.
Okay, so February is Peace Building and Conflict Prevention Month. Millions of people all over the world are currently displaced by armed conflict or persecution. In fact, 90% of casualties in armed conflicts are civilians, half of which are children. Through service projects and Rotary programs, excuse me, the Rotary family is committed to pursuing projects that address the structural causes of conflict, including poverty, inequality, ethnic tension, lack of access to education, and unequal distribution of resources. Rotary supports training, education, and practices related to peace building and conflict prevention through initiatives that help transform conflict in our communities and around the world. Now, areas of focus statements of purpose and goals. The Rotary Foundation enables Rotarians to advance peace building and conflict and prevent conflict by 1, enhancing the capacity of individuals and communities to transform conflict and build peace. Training community members in peace education, peace leadership, and conflict prevention and resolution. 3, providing services that help integrate vulnerable populations into society. 4, improving dialogue and community relations to determine how best to manage natural resources. And 5, funding graduate scholarships for career-minded professionals related to peace building and conflict prevention. Rotarian President, fellow Rotarians, this is Rotary information for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rotarian John, for a well-read Rotary information on peace building and conflict. Fellow Rotarians, for the day. Rotarian Arthur, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rotarian President. Fellow Rotarians, Rotaratis, and guests. Our guest for today to speak to us is in the person of Mr. Wilberforce Asare, who is a Ghanaian broadcast journalist, editor, and producer with a background in law and in politics, who formerly worked with IF Network Ghana Limited as a senior broadcast journalist and head of legal and human resources, Presidential Affairs of the Presidential Affairs Desk. He currently works with Asase Radio 99.5 FM under the Asase Broadcasting Company Limited as an editor and producer, where he also serves as a legal and political advisor for the station. Mr. Wilberforce attended the Youngsters International School and Accra Academy School for his senior secondary school certificate and for his junior secondary school certificate and his senior secondary school certificate, respectively. His educational career continued at the NCR Professional Training Institute, Ghana Institute of Journalism, the Esther Center for International Law and Justice, Fordham Law School in New York City, Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration to attain a legal degree LLB, and the Ghana Armed Forces Staff College. He has worked at different portfolios and acquired myriad of experiences. His areas of expertise include communication, law, and corporate governance. Yes, Rotarian President, our guest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rotarian Arthur. Mr. Wilberforce Asare, you have the floor, please.
Very good evening to all of you, and I want to register my sincere appreciation for being invited to speak to Rotary. I have admired Rotary from afar because I believe that Rotary has very responsible people who are contributing to the world order to change things. And so I find it intriguing that I get to be invited to make a presentation to members of Rotary. Thank you very much, Rotary President Andrew, who was indeed my classmate at the master's level, for inviting me to do this presentation. I will do this as quickly as I can, and I want to hope that after this presentation, all of us will have a better appreciation of the media landscape and also what we can do to support the media or to help in the field of conflict prevention. So if, with your permission, I will go straight away to talk about the few things that I have to say. So basically in our country, or globally, you can say, we have various types of media. We have the print media. And usually when we say print media, we are talking about the newspapers, essentially. So the newspapers are the print media. We also have radio, which is part of electronic media. So electronic media will be radio and television. I have been privileged to work in radio and also in television. And so most of the things that I do as a media practitioner are usually radio oriented and television oriented, and also online. In recent time, I have come to love online because in the scheme of things, when you talk about radio or when you talk about media, online is now the real deal. In most media establishments, the media editor will tell you that when you go out, first your story must be published online. If your story is not published online, you have done nothing. And then after online, you can think about radio. And then after radio, you think about television. So television, even though people can see and hear, it is actually the last in the scheme of things. Online is now the real place when we talk about media. And then now our good friend in terms of media is now social media. Social media has become so powerful such that traditional media, and when I say traditional media, I mean radio, print, television, now largely depends on social media to be able to get the work done. In fact, most of the news that you will follow in recent time in history all start from the social media. Everything that is news now first is seen on social media. And that's the reason why it's not surprising. Most radio stations, television stations broadcast their news activities and their programs all online on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and even on YouTube. And that's because social media has become extremely powerful to the extent that it is actually moving to the top. However, online media is also available on the internet. So there's a competition between social media and online media in terms of positioning when it comes to the types of media that we have. Having talked about the type of media that we have, let me just go ahead and talk about peace as I see it. Peace, according to the definition that I put up, is a state of tranquility or quiet, as a state of security or order within community provided by law or custom. So essentially, I'm just saying that a peaceful environment is where there is tranquility. Nobody is cutting anybody, nobody is killing anybody, nobody is shooting at anybody. There's calm. So we can just describe peace as such, even though as a student of security, there will be more to the definition of peace, but we cannot be able to talk about all that on this forum that we have. So basically, that would be the definition of peace. I have identified two kinds of peace, and that is negative peace and positive peace. Now, negative peace, and sometimes the word negative is used and in itself sounds negative, but the definition of negative peace, you would see, is understood as the absence of violence or fear of violence. And so if you come to an environment, such as in our country, you come to Greater Accra region, largely most of our areas are places where there is peace, there is absence of violence, even though elsewhere in parts of our country, we record incidents of violence. But negative peace, as it is the absence of violence or the fear of violence, where you have the fear that something is going to happen and all that. That will be negative peace. Positive peace, which is the second phase, is where you have a place where there are systems and activities that are gelling together such that when people are out and about, everything works for them, using the word again, peacefully. And so there will be no reason to for anybody to foment trouble and all that. That would be the definition of positive peace, when there are social and structural or institutional structures that are working together to ensure that there is peace and there's tranquility. So you go to certain environments where the train system in terms of transportation is so effective that everybody can move from one place to the other, paying minimum fees. You go to other places where transportation is so difficult. And here in our country, in Accra, where I live, most people transport themselves by what we call trotro. And when there's increase in fuel prices, there's always confusion between GPRTU and persons who use these services called trotro, because they are increasing prices and government has to intervene and all that. When there is no such structural institutions to help build peace, it can create problems. And so that is how we will call positive peace, or that's what we will call positive peace. So essentially, I've talked about the type of media, I've talked about the definition of peace, and I've talked about the two types of peace, negative peace and also positive peace. Let me now come to talk about conflict. And I chose these three topics because the topic I was giving is essentially about media, conflict, and peace. And that's the reason why I've chosen these three. And then now I'll come and talk about how the media can help prevent conflict. So essentially, conflict is a struggle and a clash of interest, opinion, or even principles. So every time you go into a community where there's a clash of interest, people have different kinds of interest. And because they have different kinds of interest, one wants to pursue their interest, it brings about conflict between the two groups. And so that is one of the ways. And then opinions. Sometimes it's about just opinion. MPP politicians and NDC politicians in our country. And because there's a clash in opinion and interest, it brings about troubles in the country or conflicts in the country. And we here in Ghana have seen conflicts coming up as a result of just political opinion. And then lastly, the issue about principles, where people think that their principle says A, B, C, D, and another group says their principle says that, and that. And because of the clash of principles, end up having conflicts. Having said all this, I want to quickly go into the main issue, which is how the media can help prevent conflict. And conflict prevention and media are two distinct, for want of a better word, they are two distinct areas, but at the same time, they are very married. They are very married because some of the world's greatest conflicts that have come and gone have been caused by virtue of reportage, media reporting. So for example, the one that comes readily in mind will be the Rwandan genocide, where it took one journalist to sit on radio and to call one group of people cockroaches, and inciting another group and say, pick up your cutlasses and kill the cockroaches. And that is what ended up having the Rwandan genocide not long ago, 1994, just a few years ago. So media and conflict prevention are so married that it is almost looking like they are twins. The 1992 Constitution of our Republic, that is the Republic of Ghana, in Article 162, which is essentially dedicated to freedom and independence of the media. Freedom and independence of the media, Article 162. It's that that provision is actually Chapter 12, and it composes Article 162 all the way to Article 173. and all of it is about media and media freedoms. It also talks about the National Media Commission. But my interest is really the first part, which says that, that's Article 1621. Freedom and independence of the media are hereby guaranteed. And that is a constitutional provision in our country, that freedom and independence of the media are hereby guaranteed. Clause 2 says that subject to this constitution and any other law not inconsistent with this constitution, there shall be no censorship in Ghana. So our constitution, subject to any other law or provisions, does not approve of censorship. It means that media people are free to do everything that they want at whatever time they want. Clause 3 says that there shall be no impediment in the establishment of private press or media, and in particular, there shall be no law requiring any person to obtain a license as a prerequisite to the establishment or operation of a newspaper, journal, or other media for mass communication or information. Let me go to 4 and see if I can end there. Editors and publishers of newspapers and other institutions of the mass media shall not be subject to control or interference by government, nor shall they be penalized or harassed for their editorial opinions and views or the content of their publications. So if you read the 1992 Constitution, you will see that it guarantees the fundamental rights and freedoms of all media practitioners in the country. But attached to these same freedoms is responsibility. And without responsibility, the media will forever be responsible for most of the conflicts that we have in our country, in the world, Africa, and elsewhere. So, quite frankly, the real deal about this whole matter, or this subject matter we are talking about, is the ability of the media to do conflict-sensitive reporting. Conflict-sensitive reporting. In all my few years of practicing in the media circles in our country, one of the things that have my work has been, how is it possible for me to put out my story so that I don't create conflict between 2 or 3 or 5 more or more people? And this question has always guided me, because if you put out a story there, and as a result of your story, people turn up and fight each other, you have caused damage. Your story has not brought improvement, it has rather brought confusion. And so the most important subject matter in this whole discussion we are having is the fact that every media practitioner, as soon as you pick your pen, in the past we say you pick your pen to write, in the modern days you pick your laptop or you pick your iPad or you pick your mobile phone to type a story, the first thing that must come to mind is that whatever it says, this story I am doing should not bring clashes between people or the persons who are involved. It should rather help improve society or help improve the subject matter for which you are reporting on. And so you take an issue, for example, in our country, when it comes to the sensitive nature of our politics, to the extent that our country is heavily polarized in terms of our political affiliations and our political choices. A half of the country are NPP, another half of the country are NDC. And when it is the NDC that is in power, everything must be done to protect the people of the NDC. When it is the MPP that is in power, everything must be done to protect the people of the MPP. And whenever there's going to be the competition for the selection of the one who will be in control of the country, it brings a lot of energy. And this energy is, if not properly managed, ends up bringing conflicts. We've seen in our country how people have been killed. People have died because some people's fathers and mothers wanted political positions. And it is completely unacceptable that we will be going to vote for somebody to occupy an office. And as a result of that, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people must die for that person to be able to occupy an office that is for a short period of time. I remember when President Akufo-Addo was coming into office in 2017 during the 2016 elections, because I was involved in reporting on matters of that. But guess what? In just about a year and 8 or so months, he's going to have to hand over, and an 8-year-old period, an 8-year period would have come to an end. And I'm asking myself, if somebody died in 2016 for President Akufo-Addo to win an election, 8 years down the line, that person who occupied the office is vacating the office and is going to be handed over to another person. Should anybody else die for that new person who is coming? No. So the role of the media is the fact that we have to be extremely conscious about the fact that everything we do, we must attach conflict sensitivity to the reporting and to the work that we do. It also applies to all of us, because all of us now have become citizens of citizens of journalism, or we've become I've forgotten the word to use, but we've all become persons who are doing one form of journalism or the other. And so let's all be minded that for whatever I will say, for whatever I will write, for whatever I will discuss, for whatever I will disclose, to what extent is it going to influence conflict or de-escalate tensions or take away conflict? And if we keep this principle of conflict sensitive reporting in our minds, we are surely going to be able to help secure the security of our territory as a country, and also help influence security globally. I'm wrapping up, and in wrapping up, I want us to take a look at some of the conflicts that are currently prevailing in our world. The most popular probably will be the one between Russia and Ukraine. And I have followed that conflict keenly. I have seen the role that media has played in that particular conflict. I tell you what, in Russia, most of the time, when you see that Russia is angry and throwing bombs at Ukraine, it is as a result of the fact that something might have happened that has gone against the strength of Russia. And by virtue of media agitations in Russia, the Russian authorities are forced to show strength because something has happened that is showing weakness. For example, when Ukraine bombed the road that leads, that connects Russia to Crimea, it bruised the image of Russia. And because of that, they rained multiple missiles on Ukraine in all kinds of forms. So media and media reportage fuels conflict. And everybody must be sensitive to the fact that whatever you are doing or saying, you are mindful of the extent to which it is bringing conflict or the extent to which it is preventing conflict. There are other conflicts that are happening in the world that we can talk about. There is the good old Palestinian war with the Israelis. There is an ongoing war in Ethiopia. There are territorial challenges in Haiti, in several other places of the world. And all of it, when you read and check and analyze, you would see that some of the actions and inactions of the media are negatively impacting on these wars. And so I will leave you with this thought that let's all be mindful of what we say and do. And I like the Rotary itself, the statement that was just read, and I think it's entitled the four-way test. You said that, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I find this profound for everything that I've been talking about, particularly about conflict-sensitive media reporting. These are the four questions that you have to ask yourself. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And would it be beneficial to all concerned? I will yield back to Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asare. I like how you ended. You are preaching our own message to us, but that's good. Yes, whilst you were talking, I think I must be quick to add that, fortunately for us, we have 3 military people in our club, in the presence of Kedel Belnunu, retired. We also have Colonel Koko Yankson, who is in active service. We also have Major Marigold Corey, who is also retired. Worthy of also mention is Edwin Barnes, Mr. Edwin Barnes, who before his retirement was the Chief Director of the Ministry of Interior. I believe these 4 persons, off the top of my head, have something. They might have a question or comment to add to what you just, the presentation you just made. Oh, okay. Return Edwin Barnes' hand is up. So Return Edwin Barnes, you have the floor, please.
Mr. President, fellow terrorists, yeah. Thanks, Mr. Asare, for the presentation. The focus on the press. I want to believe that this presentation will do very nicely for a lot of the people who are in the press. Because there are a lot of conflict situations, I believe, are being funded by the press. Edwin Barnes, and this is hypothetical, whatever we know, secretary to the Ofankor branch of the party CKC, kills Kwesi Mensah. And then the headline will be Edwin Barnes, secretary of party so and so, kills Kwesi Mensah. Why can't it be just Edwin Barnes kills Kwesi Mensah? Why should my association with a political party become important if I'm killing somebody? Because I see this as also bringing that sort of conflict situation. People then see my party in terms of the killing, rather than seeing me, Edwin Barnes, as involved in the killing. I'm sure you're very much aware of this sort of situation. Now, they say there's some NDC person in Kumasi who has made some statements, and some NDC party organizer. I wonder if he had made the statement, if no, without being necessarily attached to the NDC, whether a club also merited the same publicity as it is coming out. So I see the press. I mean, and there's something that I think we need to address. Making people, putting people in that political box, rather than they being seen as an individual committing crimes and so forth. So how can we get the press to appreciate this? And let us leave the politics of individuals aside when they have committed crimes, and let's concentrate on the crime that the person has committed and push it forward. Because otherwise, somewhere along the line, you see that well, if the magistrate in this government sends me to prison, it will be seen that, hey, because I belong to this party, that is where they. So how do we address this politicization of individuals, which is very much rife in the media, so that we look at individuals and not just as political entities by themselves? Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Return Edwin. Mr. Asare, we'll take the second question so you can answer both at the same time, if that's okay with you.
That's fine.
Okay. So, guest Kwame Sasu, you have the floor, please. Kwame Sasu, your hand is up. You have the floor. Okay, I guess Kwame Sasu, can you, Kwame Obeng, I beg your pardon. Kwame Obeng Sasu. Okay, so Mr. Asare, you can proceed.
Well, yes, so thank you very much. I can see that Mr. Barnes is a very seasoned person, and thank you for tuning in to listen to a small boy like me. But you know, the question that you asked is a very important one. There is a concept that is called clickbaiting, and clickbaiting has become one of the things that media people are using to sell themselves. So when you put something out there, everybody is looking at how many people have clicked and viewed. So you say, oh, I've had 5,000 views, and it makes and attracts people towards your page, and it also attracts adverts to you and all those kind of things. So clickbaiting now has become the focus of many people instead of the content of what they are putting out. And so people pick up things, they put it out there just to get the clicks or the eyeballs. And so somebody comes on television, and by virtue of coming on television, as soon as he starts talking and ranting, he has about 12,000 views. And for a media person, if you are doing a program and you have 12,000 eyeballs at a go, it is the go-to place for advertisers. And that means that it's a go-to place for revenue generation. And that has become one of the major problems with people who sometimes I say call themselves media persons, but are really not media persons. They are clickbaiters and also looking for money. They are salespeople. They have nothing to do with media. They have everything to do with sales and revenue generation. So it is an issue. The other issue is the good old principle of bad news sells and sensational headlines sell. The other day I saw a story in one paper. Sir John warns NDC about something. And I said, Sir John, because Sir John, as we know, is a man who has passed. The one we know as Sir John in the New Patriotic Party. But this is another person who is called something John. And apparently he also calls himself Sir John. So once they put that on the front page, anybody who sees it sees it's a sensational headline. So you will buy the paper and go and look for which Sir John they are talking about, only for you to realize that it is not a Sir John that you know, it is a different Sir John. So I agree with we have challenges, and people are clickbaiting and also sensationalizing. All of it is to make money and not the interest of dissemination of information. The last thing I'll talk about here in this matter is that in the journalism circles, even though we call it the journalism profession, it is a space where virtually anybody at all can enter. Sometimes with training or no training. And unlike elsewhere in other developed countries where they have media people who specialize, so there's an economic journalist, there is a medical journalist, there is all kinds of things. There are even persons who specialize in architecture and they do reportage. So they report on buildings, structures, and all that, so that when buildings collapse, they can do analysis and bring their professional acumen to it. Here in our country, we do not have that. We have very little. In fact, the few of us who have tried to specialize in particular areas, sometimes you end up getting the what we call people, when you too know. When you try to even specialize in, let's say, law, to be able to do legal reporting, so that when you are reporting on legal matters from the court and from the judiciary, you come at it with a special understanding. Unfortunately for us, we don't have that here. We are trying to develop that to encourage people to specialize in specific areas, and it is not that easy, it's not that simple. Even media owners don't want to help build people's capacity in that area. And so it's a challenge, but I can assure you that there are things that some media houses are doing, trying to improve the system. And maybe sooner rather than later, we should see an improvement in certain places so that you, the listening public, will have a choice. You will choose which media to listen to, not any media, because you know when you go to this media house, they are likely to tell you the proper thing and you get the proper picture, where people will have the opportunity to make choices that will influence the media space in our country.
Thank you very much. But before you go, we have another hand.
No, just a small thing to add to what
Okay,
Mr. Asare has said.
all right, sure.
Several years ago, there was a headline, E.T. Mensah arrested for rape. At that time, E.T. Mensah, one of the powers behind the NDC, was up there. I know, I read the article. Yes, the person was called E.T. Mensah. But the village that he came from, one would need the Google map to be able to identify where the village was. But the headline was E.T. Mensah. And I'm sure a lot of people may have bought the newspaper just to see whether it was E.T. Mensah, the NDC person who had been arrested for rape or that sort of thing. So, and so I agree with you. I mean, money seems to be, at the prime of all these.
I remember that story, actually. I remember that story. I
Okay.
remember that story very well. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Mensah rapes somebody also. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Edwin. President-elect Debbie from the Rotary Club of Accra Speaks Masters, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Rotarian President, and thank you very much, Mr. Asare. My question really is, in your presentation, you cited the mandate given to journalists by the Constitution. And one of the, another institution you mentioned was the National, Commission on...
National Media Commission.
Yes, National Media Commission. My question really is, what is this body doing to censor some of these reportage and the things that we see, read, and hear on the airwaves? Because really some of us sit down and you are so perplexed by some of the things you see, hear, and that, but for Ghanaians being, and in quotes, peace-loving, this country would have been up in flames long ago. So what really is this governing body doing to bring some sanity in the output from the media houses that we receive on a daily basis? Thank you very much, Rotarian President, and over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, P. We'll take the very last question, then you answer both in a double-barreled way, Mr. Asare. So, Lieutenant John, you have the floor, please.
Yes, yeah, RP. I think my question relates a bit to what the last speaker asked. That is the way we now have radio stations all over the country, and many backing a particular political party. I don't know what the speaker thinks of this situation. You have media houses, clearly, radio stations, which every day, go backing one party or the other, and clearly the whole day, that's what we hear, bashing of the one party against the other, that kind of thing. So I don't know what he thinks of this situation. Thank you.
Mr. Asare, over to you.
Okay, so let me take the first one, which is the Media Commission. And I must tell you that if you look at the 1992 Constitution, Articles 166, Clause 1, the composition of the National Media Commission is clearly stated there. It's a very, very powerful composition, if you ask me. So there's the Ghana Bar Association, there is the publishers and owners of private press, Ghana Association of Writers, the Christian groups, the National Catholic Secretariat, the Christian Council, the Ghana Pentecostal Council, the Federal Muslim Council, the Training Institution of Journalism, the Ghana Advertisers Association, the National Association of Teachers, several others, the president making nominations and all that. So the NMC, quite frankly, is supposed to be a powerful institution if you look at the composition. However, I can tell you that the major problem of the NMC has been resources, ability to monitor and to be able to bite. If you don't have the resources to monitor, it is very difficult to bite. And so the NMC exists for me as provided for in the 1992 Constitution. But in terms of resources to fund, to be able to do that, their watchdog role of ensuring that people do the right thing, they don't have the wherewithal to do it because they are seriously underfunded. I have come to the point, or to the point where I think that if you look at the composition, these institutions must join forces. As long as you send a representation to the Media Commission, also send some kind of a contribution, because the institutions are very powerful. Ghana Bar Association, as I've said, Writers Association, the church associations, Catholic Church Secretariat, Christian Council, Ghana Pentecostal Council, all these people are part of the NMC as per its composition, but yet still, they don't have the resources to be able to do the things that they have to do. And so I think that that is extremely important. Again, media ownership in the country. Media ownership in the country has largely been political. If you like, let's do an analysis of the radio stations we have in Accra, and you will realize that about 80% of them are owned by people in the political class or people who are politically connected. So media ownership in our country has been political across board, from Accra to Paga. Check all the radio stations that we have.
Including Asare Radio.
Exactly, including Asare Radio where I work, yes. So it was one of the things. So if you don't have politicians who are willing to ensure that the right thing is done, there'll be a problem. Here at Asare Radio where I work, our philosophy is credibility. And anybody who follows us knows that we don't do the bidding of one political party. We try as much as possible to put out what is credible. And we are riding on our credibility. And I think that that is the only thing that will sustain us in the industry. And I am very sure that you will agree with me that Asare Radio appears credible than other people who are connected to certain political parties and all that. I stand to be corrected. I stand to be criticized. But I believe that we are doing everything possible to be credible. So I believe that I've been able to answer both questions, but the increasing number of media houses, the constitution is such that you cannot prevent anybody who is within the means to open a media house and all that. You cannot prevent them. That's the kind of constitution we have. And so by all means, when people want to open the media houses, we must give it to them because it's their constitutional right. But when it comes to regulation, monitoring, it becomes an issue. Recently, when the National Communications Authority, NCA, did some kind of enforcement, there were issues that were raised by certain people when they tried to enforce the payment of fees and all those kind of things. It was a problem. Some people said it amounted to gagging the media. It amounted to doing so many things against the media. So there are sensitive issues concerning this. I'm not sure we can exhaust it at this forum, but in the broader space, media ownership in our country is a problem, but that's what we have. And we must balance it with regulation. Regulation means that we must strengthen the regulator. The regulator here being the National Media Commission. It needs to be strengthened to be able to play its watchdog role of monitoring and sensitizing the media space in our country. I'll yield back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asare. We must balance our media with regulation, i.e. strengthening them. PhD William Oforiata, PhD William Ofori says, good talk to our speaker. I guess that's a commendation. At this point, time is fast spent. We are supposed to be ending our meeting at 19:30. I'll crave your indulgence for some 15 more minutes so we can bring the meeting to an end. But Mr. Asare, before we give, we would invite Lieutenant Edwin to appreciate you on our behalf. Like I indicated, he's Chief Director, former Chief Director of the Ministry of Interior. So he understands a bit of, he really understands the issues of security space. Lieutenant Edwin, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant President, for Rotarians. I think Mr. Asare has really answered the questions I was going to ask him about his presentation by ending his presentation with a 4-way test. And I want to believe that having these 4 questions with him all the time, he will make sure that anytime he has some news to present to us, the public. He will abide by them. And so to help you in doing this, Mr. Asare, we are going to make a copy of this 4-way test available to you. You will have it electronically now, but then later on, you have it in real life, you have it live, so that you can place it in your office, that anytime there's a news item that you want to let the public know about, you ask yourself these 4 questions. Is it the truth? Is it fair? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I believe if you live by these principles, Ghana is going to be a positively peaceful country in which we shall all live. So you have a copy of this certificate, but you've also been part of us for today. So there'll be another certificate which will just show our gratitude to you for having joined us today. So Mr. Asare, thank you very much. You receive these certificates, and I hope that the 4-way test will be part of the way that you handle things. I want to promise you that I'm going to monitor you. And at any appropriate time, if I find you going against any of these principles of the 4-way test, I'll be on you like a ton of bricks. Thank you very much.
I actually welcome your decision to monitor me. I really enjoy that. I have several people who do that, from lawyers to judges, who monitor me and give me feedback. I think it has helped improve me and helped me to be able to do the work that I do. And so I welcome you, and I thank you for your certificate, and I will stand by the 4-way test to ensure that I promote truth, fairness, goodwill, better friendships, and beneficial and things that will be beneficial to all who are concerned. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.